Welcome, everyone. You're listening to Nephology, the podcast dedicated to crypto, accounting, business, finance, and much, much more. I'm Joe David, the founder of Nephos Group in Minor. Please note that all conversations recorded are professional opinions, and if you'd like to know more or gain support, please reach out to the team directly. Now on to the next episode.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Nephology podcast. I'm Tom, the DeFi accounting specialist, and I'm joined today with Tal from Tres.Finance. So we'll kick it off by Tal just giving an introduction about himself and explaining what the Tres.Finance product is.
Sure, thanks for having me. So a bit about myself. So before we started Tres, I was actually an investor, a VC firm here in Israel. I'd say a more general firm investing in cybersecurity, Fintech, DevOps, cloud infrastructure. And then in 2018, a friend of a friend who I really respected, I thought he was like one of the smartest people ever, started getting into the whole blockchain ecosystem. And he was working at another company, and he participated in a hackathon that was sponsored by Facebook, actually. And at the time, they built some kind of event platform based on blockchain technology. I thought it was like super, super, super cool. I said, if this guy ever decides to kind of start his own company, I'm going to be the first investor there. And surprisingly enough, a few months later, he actually founded a company, and we had a very competitive deal because we had to kind of fight a really well-known firm at the time, 2018, right? So there weren't that many blockchain VCs, and we were competing on the deal, and we were able to invest. So we led the deal there. And that was kind of the first blockchain investment that I led. It was the first one for the firm. And that kind of opened up my appetite. Then we experienced the winter, right? And like the whole fund was like this, keep focusing on AI and all kinds of stuff like that. And then the whole rebranding into Web3 and the NFT trend kind of picked up again 2022. And that's when I started looking back into the space and we started investing again. And by the end of 2022, I was thinking of like what I'm going to do next. I knew it's going to be something in the Web3 space. And I was really fortunate to reunite with my friend and co-founder, Eilon. We served together in the army. He has a vast experience and a background in cybersecurity. He was a founder before. And we knew we were going to build something in the enterprise space, B2B, infrastructure, data, again, in the Web3 space. And we started looking into what kind of gaps and challenges there are in the market. And I'm sure you are very familiar with this, but when you started talking to CFOs, finance teams in the space, you could just see what's going on there, right? Spreadsheets all over the place, silos of data. And this was caused because of like influx in layer ones, layer twos, DeFi products, financial products on the blockchain in general, exchanges, different wallets and custodians. So it was very difficult for the average not Web3 native finance teams to keep track of what's going on and to make sense of their finance. And that is like, as an investor, former investor, I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, this is such an interesting problem to solve. And this actually has real potential to bring value and to build a big business around. So that's how we started Tres. And then, of course, I mean, you probably understand what we built. But what was interesting about building Tres is that the easy part was kind of saying, okay, we understand there's a problem, let's go build some kind of accounting application for crypto, right? And as data people, we said, like, oh, how can we bring the data in? We started looking for solutions for that. And no matter how many people say they're building data platforms for Web3, truth is there are hardly any good ones. Okay, most of the ones that you see are kind of node as a service or indexes where you get index data, but it's very raw data. There's no financial context. So that's when we understood that we need to kind of stop building the application, bring in the team that we built, which all of them are kind of from our unit 8.1 and 8200 in the Israeli intelligence forces, and let's build the first Web3 financial data lake. Okay, that means building as many integrators as possible. We call them collectors at Tres. And how can we bring in as many data sources as possible, pass the data, enrich it, and present it back to the user, and then create the option to manage different use cases like accounting, audit, and reporting on top of the data through the application. So that means fitting the application to the data and not fitting the data to the application. So we are a platform to help finance teams manage their financials, audit, accounting, reporting, track their DeFi positions, build different queries, and inside the top of those on top of the financial data, it's your financial HQ.
Brilliant. Yeah, the financials in crypto is always such a technical area, and having a software like yours to help aid with the process is such a relief. It helps lift a massive manual burden that otherwise we would have to sort through these thousands of transactions. Because, as you know, each crypto transaction can sometimes be broken down into multiple different feeds. So, yeah, no, it's really, really good to know. So, what makes Tres special compared to other software products?
Yeah, so I would say there are two main differentiators that make us more competitive. The first one is the fact that we just added an internal CPA, but before that, no one had financial background. We came from data backgrounds, and that means that we built very strong and unique data pipelines that enable us to add any layer one, layer two DeFi protocol as an integration. We give our customers a 30-day SLA to support 100% of their assets. Okay, that is unheard of. And I talked to a pretty big potential customer the other day, and he said, that's super aggressive. I said, 30 days is actually with a buffer. We can do it within 7 days. We do things really, really fast because we have the right infrastructure to do so. And as you know, in accounting, if I don't give you 100% coverage of all your assets, if I'm missing parts it has to be manual, I miss the point. Okay, accounting is all about the data. Okay? You have to get all the data in, and you have to get it accurately, right? So another thing that we do is data integrity. And data integrity, when it comes to like regular transactions, it's not that big of a challenge. When it comes to DeFi, and you as a DeFi master, you probably understand liquidity pools, staking, MEVs, proof of stake happening on Cosmos, staking LP tokens. These things are super complex to understand and monitor and give financial and accounting context. Those are things that we excel at. Okay, that is exactly our sweet spot. The more complicated your financial parameter is, the better we perform. So that's what makes us very different in today in like the Web3 accounting software ecosystem.
Yeah, no, definitely completely agree with that. We come across, a wide variety of different clients. And as you say, some of them are just purely transacting in crypto, which is, fairly simple to reconcile. But when it comes to entering LP pools, having to accrue for interest, having to recognize the fees, having to look at impermanent loss, all these, different calculations which come into play, it's so vital to have a piece of software that can read all of that. So yeah, no, that's good. So in terms of use cases, what different types of clients can use the Tres.Finance software?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. I would say that what's really cool about like blockchain, crypto, Web3 is that there are no borders, right? So in terms of geography, we don't really mind because even though if you think about accounting, each geography has its own regulation and the way they want to manage the accounting and taxes and audit. It's important to say that's exactly why we work with companies like Miner, right? We need that firm to come and do the 20% of the work of taking the data from the Tres platform and making it digestible for the regulators to then process. We do the heavy lifting of the data, okay, and that is the same for any Web3 company or any company engaging with digital assets. So I would say in terms of geography, we can work with anyone. Then it comes to where the companies encounter the biggest challenge. So if you're a smaller company, you have 2, 3, 5 wallets, 20, 30 transactions a month, and you're running on a spreadsheet or manually pushing it into Xero, QuickBooks, or NetSuite, be my guest. I would recommend not spending money on a subledger or some kind of software like ours. But the minute you start scaling and you're working on multiple layer ones and layer twos, and you have different wallets, and you have over 100 transactions, that's when things become super complex and the overhead is just not worth it. And that's when you need to start working with a company like us and using our platform. So I would say that is kind of the benchmark where we start. And then, of course, the more you scale, the more complex your financial parameter is, that the more relevant we are, and the more value you can actually extract out of using our services.
Yeah, no, that's great. So I completely agree with, double entry bookkeeping is a universally accepted practice. You don't need region specifics. And I think that's why it's so important to understand that a software like yours can handle everything for anybody across the globe. And then it is purely down to finding that accountant that can help you with that last step. So at Miner, for example, obviously we're UK based, so we're more familiar with the UK regulators, but we have clients all over the globe that we help using software like yours to get the full picture of their books together. So yeah, that's a good point. So in terms of investors, customers, growth, what do you think the next 12 months look like for Tres?
I wish I knew. I think that at the moment we are really heads down building. We raised a nice amount of capital from amazing investors, some of the biggest names in the crypto space, like Alchemy, MoonPay, Circle, Block Demon, founders of Chainalysis, Into the Block, Fireblocks, etc. So we are like well connected inside the ecosystem, and we have enough runway to run for a few more years. We are keeping the team relatively small. The reason is the minute you start growing in terms of headcount, that's when things become a bit more complex and the overhead is a bit more difficult to manage. And most of the team here we know from before. It's like friend of friends, and we all serve together in the same unit. So it's kind of a organic feeling in terms of like how we work together. Our growth is pretty crazy as an investor. I can say, a former investor. We are growing really nicely. Tens of customers, revenue is growing really nicely. Some well-known names that I can't really disclose here, but I'm sure you'll hear about us soon. So I would say that the next quarter we are aiming to double, if not triple, our revenue. That's probably when we'll go for our next round and raise a substantial amount of capital to kind of hit the gas in terms of scale and make sure that every single CFO finance team in the Web3 space hears about Tres and the value we can bring. And we want to lead the market and make sure that everyone has the right infrastructure to keep their financial hygiene and make sure that operationally they are doing the right thing and not putting their company in risk by not managing their financials.
Yeah, no, that's so good to hear, especially considering the current climate. Obviously, for some reason, crypto can't seem to catch a break at the moment in terms of things going wrong elsewhere in the industry. And it's so good to hear that you guys are continuing to grow. I think it's such an important thing, accounting, and it's something that everybody is always going to need, access to financial data and knowing the bigger picture of their company. And I think, especially in crypto, just from my experience directly in the industry over the past couple of years, having that full clean picture, proper financials, actually having a finance function, whereas a lot of projects don't. They focus purely on their product. That's what's going to make and break your project at the end of the day. And yeah, no, it's good to see that everybody's continuing to grow and take their accounting seriously.
And we know what happens when you start building, and after a year or two, you're like, oh wait, I need to take care of my financials, and then they reach out to us or to you guys, and we see what they've done before. We're like, wow, guys,
Yeah,
now you have to stop everything you're doing for a couple of weeks and just hurt the momentum of the company. So rather do everything properly from the beginning and set the infrastructure to kind of smoothen the way into managing your financials, rather than just like cutting everything off in the middle of your momentum and then going back in time and trying to make sense of what happened. I think that's a tip. Every time I meet an early stage company that wants like advice about fundraising, something like, hey guys, don't use my system. I'm not trying to sell. Even run some kind of spreadsheet or download a report even from Etherscan, just so you have some kind of documentation, okay? And take snapshots on a monthly basis of your balance, because in the future, you will need this and you will thank me that I told you to do this. It will save you so much time and money.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think just around the bigger picture as well, I think a lot of people just don't really realize the implications of dealing with crypto, because obviously legislation and regulations still not quite there in terms of giving clear guidelines. And that's something I stress to everyone all the time. Get ahead of the game. Don't wait for regulation to come in. Get ahead of it now and get your records in line, just like you said. In the UK, we've got potential VAT implications, corporation tax implications, and all these different things that could potentially affect you. And if you're not record keeping, you're going to fall behind and you're going to get a slap on the wrist for it. Um, so I'll move on a bit from there and I'll move on to talking about accounting for DeFi specifically. So with the Tres.Finance software, what are the different types of DeFi protocols that you can account for?
I would say in terms of native staking, we can support almost anything. The amount of protocols that we support today, I can't. We won't even I'll just be talking the whole way until we finish the podcast. We support everything. Not only do we support everything, so what does it mean even support everything? Okay, we show you all your transactions. We're able to help you account for your rewards. We're able to give you a visual of how the positions were created, which is great in terms of how the front desk who's creating these positions and the back office communicate. Okay, they have to collaborate on these kind of things. We give you an understanding of your fiat value of your holdings in liquidity pools. We help you generate reports when it comes to how to look at a liquidity pool in terms of deposits, withdrawals, principals, compared to rewards that have been streamed into the pool. We even help companies that are doing institutional staking or staking as a service understand their validators operations. If it's self stake or if companies are delegating to their validators, how do they attribute the holdings in terms of rewards? Okay, how do they distribute the rewards to their customers, and then how do they calculate the commission from those rewards? Okay, all of those things we can help you analyze. We call it DeFi revenue analysis. Okay, so that is one of our most unique use cases, and we have lots of customers in that space that are using our services to make sure that all of those activities are in place and in order.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. It's yeah, as I said before, all of the different types of mechanisms that you've got within the smart contracts is so important that you capture every single element of that smart contract interaction. Otherwise, there is always going to be that small fee or commission, as you say, which could get missed and left behind. So, yeah, that's so important. So, what would you say are the most common challenges and pitfalls when it comes to doing your DeFi reconciliations?
Um, Reconciliation becomes really tricky, especially if you are involved in like complex DeFi positions. But even if not, there are different layer ones and layer twos that have kind of anti-inflation mechanisms or automatic rebalancing mechanisms, which change the balance of a token in your wallet, in your custody, without any on-chain movement being documented, which creates a gap in your balance. And that is very challenging for people that aren't technical enough to really go into the smart contract and understand the mechanism behind it. So that's something we can definitely help with. And then in terms of staking, like how do you look at unclaimed rewards, claimed rewards? That is also something that we see many companies having challenges with, because sometimes a reward is being attributed to you, but you have to go and claim it. But in some places in the world, once it's attributed to you and becomes available, that's when it actually became yours. Okay, and then not always is there a documentation of that exact point in time. So those are two challenges that we see. And then the third one is when it comes to impermanent loss in liquidity pools, and how do you keep track of your cost basis inside of a liquidity pool. So you push two assets into a liquidity pool, you receive the token. Now you start withdrawing out of the liquidity pool. Is it principal? Is it part of the fees? Is it your interest? What do you bring out first? How do you calculate it? What if the assets were also appreciated or depreciated over time? Then you have to kind of adjust the pricing. Anyway, it's a really, really interesting topic. We were actually able to solve this for many of our customers, not automatically enough. And the reason is because different liquidity pools act differently. So to build a generic code around those kind of situations is relatively difficult, but there's something that we can help our customers with, because we do have a playbook on how to work around those liquidity pool positions.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those who don't know what impermanent loss is essentially when two tokens in a pool have varying market values, so that when you withdraw from the pool, if the value has increased or decreased on one of them, you could receive a different volume of tokens back for the other. So it's a very intricate area. And obviously, if you want to understand that, like Tal said, you can reach out to Tres, you can reach out to Miner, and we can have a look at your situation and help work that out even more. Same like what you were saying with reflection and rebasing tokens and those kinds of things. They're very intricate and specific situations that, to be honest, most traditional accountants are not going to understand. So that's why it's so important that you get specialists on board who have dealt with it and know what they're talking about. So further on from this, so how would your services benefit businesses as a whole? What do you think the ultimate end goal is that they can get out of working with you?
I would say first and foremost is the fact that you can sleep in peace. So my dad always used to say, if someone knocks on the door 3, 4 a.m. and you're actually worried about why they are coming, it means that you did something wrong. Okay. You have to know how to run your shop and make sure that everything is in order. Okay. And that's exactly what we do and how and we help you get to that situation. That's number one. Number two is optimizing your finance team's work, focusing on the most important things for your company, and not turning them into, I would say, kind of Excel monkeys where they're just going to either scan and copy paste data. Okay, let us, specialized team of engineers, give you the tools to manage your financials, and then let your team work on top of that platform to optimize for the best results. And that can save you a lot of time, hours, days. In a year, it turns out to weeks, especially end of year audit, where we are able to bring you the data in a concentrated manner. That is a huge value prop for your team, saves you tens of thousands of dollars, if not more. And I'll say, last but not least, many times we see that companies actually miss assets that belong to them and miss transactions that belong to them. Okay, this can result, as we said, in penalties. And we even found not so long ago $150,000 worth of assets for one of our customers, because we saw transactions going to this wallet. It was never registered inside the platform. We thought it might be theirs. We flagged it. They checked internally and found some kind of spreadsheet where this wallet was actually registered with all the details and how to log into that wallet. So there's a lot of value using a specialized, dedicated platform to manage your Web3 financials and back office.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of was going to lead me on to my next point. A lot of people are probably worried about their data reconciliations. They're probably worried about where to even start. What would you say the first step someone needs to do if they want to work with Tres.Finance? What data do they need to get for you?
In order to work with us, we need almost nothing. Okay, we need a list of your wallets. If you want to also get your off-chain data on exchanges or OTC platforms, we need the API read only, and that's it. Everything else is automated, 100% automated. Okay, we will do the reconciliation for you. We'll find the gaps for you. We even know how to do transaction tagging automatically for most of the transactions for you. We can help you build roll-ups, different rules on top of the data. Think about us as an extension of your finance team, but that everyone's a technologist and automates these processes for you. So onboarding is a couple of hours and very lightweight.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what everybody wants to hear. And just to add on to that, what makes it even easier is for those who use different accounting packages. Tres.Finance is integrated with Zero, so it can literally take you minutes, and you could have your records recorded, picture built, and everything's there for you to present. So it's nice having such a streamlined process. And as you say, it's all about efficiency. It's all about saving time and making sure that you can get the time back.
Yeah, and also that you enjoy your job, right? Like we want to make it a delightful process. I mean, we don't want people to kind of being super frustrated on reconciling transactions and going through Etherscan and talking to other people on the team on who made this transaction or who committed that kind of position. We are there to kind of also offer a very nice UI to interact with and see the data in a easy to manage interface, and also get visibility into what's happening inside your financial parameter, which is often is also very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just wanted to touch lightly on one of the data bits quickly. So what kind of sources do you use for your data? Because I have, clients that come to me and we've got all these different tokens, some meme coins, different exchanges, different chains. And obviously the main thing that we want to know is, how do we determine the cost basis? How do we determine, the accrued income, all these other bits? What data sources do you use, and how does that process work?
Sure. So if you're working on an exchange, we need the API read only, we pull the data directly from the exchange. If it's on-chain, we have a data architecture that's called data mesh. What we actually do is we pull from various data sources. It can be our own nodes, it can be nodes as a service, it can be scraping from indexes, it can be all kinds of data sources, where we also have a second primary and a secondary data source. So if something experiences downtime, we are still able to serve you and make sure that your financials are in order. And in terms of pricing, we use CoinGecko as our primary source and CoinMarketCap as secondary. I'll just say one more thing, because we just talked about today internally. When you are a company working with an indexer, there is you can actually, or someone can actually hack those indexes and create an overload on the system where it creates downtime, and then you won't have access to that data. Using Tres, which is an enterprise grade solution, we can assure you that these kind of attacks will not influence the way we bring you data. Okay, so in terms of relying on our data availability and our data integrity, you will not find anything better in the market. We'll be releasing a blog about that, because we saw someone create an attack like that and we investigate that. Of course, our DNA in the company is very cybersecurity oriented, so these things fascinate the team, and they kind of went deep into that. And we also built a mechanism to defend our customers from those kind of attacks that hurt the back office and the day-to-day operations of a company. And when we work with enterprises and companies that these things super matter to, we want to make sure that we can kind of understand that they won't be affected from these kind of situations.
Yeah, no, that's really reassuring to hear. I think for most people in the DeFi space, especially degens, obviously security is one of the utmost importance to us. So it's great to hear that you guys have got that under wraps and know that our data is secure. So no, thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about today, Tal?
I think that we are experiencing some really interesting developments in the industry, even though the past couple of months have been somewhat difficult because of all the exposure to FTX and other incidents. Every conference I went to in the past couple of weeks was really, really interesting. You can see teams building, you can see stable coin operations flourishing, you can see talks and a trend about digitizing and tokenization of different assets, which in my opinion is going to be somewhat the future. You can see the gaming industry picking up, you can see the NFT space finding use cases that are actually viable in the real world. And I think that there is a new type of industry growing because things are so hard. The real builders are coming out. The people that were maximizing have kind of left and moved to generative AI. And this is actually the time to build and see the ecosystem grow. And we are super excited to power the growth of this industry and make sure that the infrastructure and the financial backbone is there to support the next generation of builders. So super excited about what's to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially, obviously, the press doesn't always paint crypto in the best way, but I do genuinely believe, like you do, that I think we're getting to a place now where the retail consumers are starting to understand it a bit more. We're getting more and more people come into the industry. And as I always like to say, building the bear, thriving the bull. Everybody's building right now. We're getting ready for the next run. And I definitely think we will see new highs in the future. So, yeah, no, we're all on the same page, I think, which is good.
Yeah, LFG, man.
So, Tal, if anyone wants to reach out to you to find out a bit more about Tres, how should they contact you?
LinkedIn, Tres.Finance, or type in Tal Zackon, you'll find me. Twitter, same thing. And of course, on our website, Tres.Finance, on the top right corner, there'll be schedule a demo. It will take you directly to our Calendly, and then you'll get to meet me for 30 minutes, and I'll be showing you the platform. So super accessible. Feel free to reach out. We'll be more than happy to work with you. Just make sure we only support enterprises and B2B. It's not a retail product. Just want to clarify and make sure people understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, Tal.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on, and I'm sure I'll be speaking to you again in the future.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks for having me. Have a good one.